accordance with the Planning Act and may require the application to be recirculated for the next hearing date at a cost to the applicant at the prescribed fee. If an applicant amends their plans with no impact to the variances or to reduce the variance requested, recirculation may not be required. As part of the statutory public notification requirements, each applicant was required to post a sign on the property and file a statutory declaration confirming the sign posting. This declaration must be on file today before we can hear the application. Without it, I may have to adjourn the application or administer an oath if necessary. Can the coordinator confirm that we have received all statutory declarations?
Mr. Chair, we have not received any statutory declarations.
Thank you, coordinator. I will administer the oath to all applicants then. The committee may ask for a brief presentation of the application followed by questions from members and submissions from the public. Please address your comments to the chair, starting with your name and spelling it if necessary, and your municipal address for the record. The committee limits presentations to 5 minutes. Any exceptions will be at the discretion of the chair. Finally, before we begin, we have 2 items of business to address. Does any member present need to declare an interest in any of the applications that are before us today or are on the agenda of another committee panel? Mr. Otto?
Yes, I have a conflict with item number 15, D00483, 8352 Panna Road, and also on item number 18, D0801121B00477, 3943 Nixon Drive, Austin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Otto. We'll ask you to be excused when we get to those items. We'll put them at the end of the agenda. We also have to adopt minutes of the past public hearing. Any changes or revisions to be adopted? All right, we will be looking at adopting minutes of November 3rd and November 17. All those in favor of adopting the minutes of those 2 dates, please raise your hands. Item number for December 8th, I was not present, so I'll ask the other members if they would like to adopt these minutes. Please raise your hands if you agree with those minutes to be adopted. Those minutes will be adopted as well. Thank you. And we will now proceed with the application scheduled for this hearing. We'll deal firstly with any items that may be adjourned. I believe we have several, 9 in total so far, unless there are others. To that end, we'll start at the top. Item number 1 is an adjournment request having to do with item number 1 and 2, having to do with 2502 Scrivens Drive. And Mr. Polton, are you available on behalf of your client?
Yes, I am.
Are you in agreement with this request for adjournment?
We are in agreement, yes.
Great. All those, I'd like to ask the panel if they would like to adjourn this to the hearing date of March the 16th. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Yes, those your application has been adjourned, Mr. Polton. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So item number 1 and 2. We'll move on to item number 3. This is having to do with 3094 Barlow Crescent. Alice Kelleher. Ms. Kelleher, are you available? You're muted, Ms. Kelleher.
Apologize. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Are you in agreement with this adjournment request?
I would like to ask the committee if they could consider perhaps adding a clause. As MVCA have asked for a slope stability assessment, which we understand is a requirement definitely when we apply to MVCA. We're wondering if you could add a note of some sort to an agreement or whatever you decide today that might say that will be provided at that time and not make it a requirement of today.
I think we're just dealing with the adjournment request, ma'am. But there is a little bit larger item because there are several changes to your variances. I'm going to ask the panel if they agree that this application should be recirculated to the public in order to give the public the opportunity to review the changes in the minor variances. To that end, I'd like to ask the panel if they would like to have this application recirculated for that reason? Please raise your hands if you'd like to have that recirculated. So the application will need to be recirculated given that there are new, the variances have changed substantially. So to that end, you'll have to recirculate your application, Ms. Kelleher.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to application number 6.
Mr. Chair, if I may, the recirculation of that, we should have a date. I don't know if that can be done by March 16th or not. We should. So how does that work? I guess it depends when the applicant gets, I don't know. How soon can that be?
Let's ask Deputy Secretary Treasurer, are we able to get this onto the docket for the 7th to the 16th, given recirculation requirements?
Mr. Chair, we would typically schedule the application as soon as we can, once we receive the applicable fee for the recirculation. If that fee is submitted this week, potentially even early next week, it is possible that we could accommodate it as early as February 16th. But it's in the hands of the applicant as soon as they can provide the recirculation fee.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis?
Yeah, we also got to get that slope stability thing. That should be done first out of the way too. Should all get done at once. My thoughts.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Chandler?
Between those two things, and since they'd be paying a fee for recirculation as well, there's normally a cost associated with sine die, but would that not be the same cost as associated with the recirculation anyways?
Mr. Secretary Treasurer?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, it's the reactivation fee. It's the same fee.
So I would suggest we adjourn at sine die, and then it can be scheduled quickly based on when the sort of needs are fulfilled, since it's not going to make a difference in terms of cost or time, really.
Great suggestion, Ms. Chandler. Ms. Kelleher, do you have any objections?
No, so we're just adjourning, and then that way there's no other fees applicable. Is that how I'm understanding it?
No, there still is a recirculation fee because of the changes to your variances,
Okay,
but doing it sine die will just mean that it'll be put in line as soon as you put your application fee in.
okay, I agree. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Your application has been adjourned sine die. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye now.
On to application number 6. This is having to do with 3590 Torwood Drive. Mr. Main, are you available?
Yes, I am.
Now, this application is being requested to be adjourned. Are you in agreement with that request? Sir?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And I believe we're trying to get that on the March 16th.
Yes, that's what
hearing?
was suggested by the city. Yes.
Okay. So panel, I'd like to ask for your that this application be adjourned to March 16. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Yep, you're adjourned to March 16. Thank you very much, Mr. Main.
Thank you very much, Chair.
On to application number 7. This is having to do with 2004 Old Carp Road. Mr. West, are you available?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Good morning, Mr. West. Are you in agreement with this adjournment request?
We're in agreement with the adjournment request, but we'd like to adjourn the application to the next available hearing, which we understand is February 2nd. Municipal staff have provided comments with respect to the new official plan, and we're of the opinion that the new official plan actually doesn't apply to this application. So we'd just like to have a discussion with municipal staff.
All right. And do you have any comments, Mr. Harrigan?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, we would be agreeable to that date. Any conversations with the transition policy and the new official plan should take part with the policy team, which I understand Mr. West and Marie Chown have already had extensive conversations with. So just to continue that avenue to pursue that. Our original adjournment date to March 16th was just based on the new official plan and a conflict of policies. That was a mistake. So as of right now, if they'd like to go with the February 2nd, we are agreeable to that.
Great, thank you very much. I'd like to ask the panel if they agree with the adjournment of this application to February the 2nd. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Your application has been adjourned until February the 2nd. Thank you, Mr. West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Now on to application number 10. It's having to do with 1041 Corkery Road. Ms. Zander, are you available?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members.
Good morning, Ms. Zander. There's an adjournment request here, but more importantly, I guess there's been a substantial change to this application in terms of size of the different applications. And due to that, I'd like to ask the panel if they agree with having this application recirculated so that the public can see the change in this application. Panel?
Chair,
Yes.
Sorry, I just had a question. I think the lots have been moved too. Isn't that the other issue?
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Okay.
So to that end, I'm again asking if the panel would like to have this application recirculated to the public so the public has a better opportunity to review the application and make comments. All those in favor of recirculation of this application? All those. Yeah. Ms. Zander, your application needs to be recirculated to reflect the changes to your application.
Okay,
Okay, so to that end, I think we should do it sine die, and as soon as you get your application fees in, we can put it onto the docket.
Mr. Chair, if I may, on Friday afternoon, your staff asked us to change the sketch and move the lots to the north side, which we did, and staff indicated they could bring this forward. So it was, and I was directed to not change the application forms or the planning report, to just submit a revised sketch. So I certainly wasn't anticipating, I'm not objecting to the recirculation, I understand. I wasn't anticipating a recirculation fee or anything like that based on my discussion with staff.
Okay. Mr. Harrigan, do you have any comments there?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, the decision to recirculate is outside the planning department's position. Our position was that the two lots were originally on the southern interior lot size, and there was just environmental concerns, so they were just moved to the northern side, the northern interior lot. Still, two severances are proposed. We have no objections to hearing it now. It's the committee's decision.
I think, and more importantly, the public needs to know a little bit more about the changes that you're suggesting, Ms. Zander. And if the public weren't aware that these lots were being moved, it's very difficult for them to make a comment. So to that end, it needs to be recirculated sine die, and then adjourned sine die. Okay. So, Ms. Zander, your application is being adjourned to sine die, and thank you very much for your.
Thank you.
Thank you. On to application number 13. This is having to do with 2535 Munster Road. Mr. Webster, are you available?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Webster doesn't appear to be on the call. I'll try to reach him.
All right, so we'll set this down for the time being and we'll move on to application number 14. Application number 14 is having to do with 3946 Dwyer Hill Road. Mr. Chapman or Ms. Chapman, are you available? Seem to be muted. Ms. Chapman?
Sorry, I had some complications there.
That's
yes, I am
okay.
available.
Thank you. Now we're looking at this in terms of an adjournment. Do you agree with the adjournment request?
I do agree. I was hoping that, as this was just brought to my attention on Friday, I was hoping to get a little advice from you guys. So I'm not sure if you want to hold down until after you do all your adjournments, or if you want me to
Might as
Kinda
well
speak
go
now.
ahead a little bit into it right now. What's the advice you're looking for?
Okay, so obviously I'm looking to sever land on my parents' property, and it was brought to my attention on Friday that the planning department had recommended an adjournment, stating the errors that were made. I'm hoping that the board would consider approving the lot as it is a technicality, and I'm looking for advice on how to proceed. But I am willing to adjourn to March, obviously, as well as an alternative. The planners report did say that they had concerns. They didn't object to it. Rideau Valley Conservation came back as no concerns. Bell Canada had no concerns. Hydro had no concerns. Right away, obviously, we'd have to apply if we're going to add in a new driveway. So anyways, I do appreciate your time, but I was hoping that maybe we could consider approving it opposed to adjourning it. But I completely leave that up to you.
Okay. Mr. Harrigan, you have some comments to make?
Thank you. So this application was submitted after October 27th and is to be reviewed as per the transition policies approved by City Council under whichever official plan is more restrictive, the old official plan or the new official plan. The new official plan is more restrictive as it is intended to protect rural lands more. In October, there was a mistake where the infill policy was added back into the new official plan. Instead of being made its own independent policy, it was added into the general rural severance policy. And the criteria of both policies were combined. This was not the intent, but it was a mistake that has happened. We've contacted the policy team and they've instructed that we have to apply the official plan as it is currently written. So from our perspective, we can't support the application because of the mistake, but we do note that once this mistake is corrected, this application would adhere to the official plan entirely. So it is up to the applicant if they wish to have their application heard as is, but the planning department can't support it because of the mistake in the policy right now.
Thank you, Mr. Harrigan. So I guess March 16th is the next date of our hearing where the new official plan will be in place, or the minister will have solved the issue that you have right now. Is that correct, Mr. Harrigan?
That is the anticipated date right now, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so Ms. Chapman, it's to your best interest to probably wait until March 16th so that this can be resolved with the new official plan. Do you agree?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Panel, I'd like to ask for your approval to adjourn this application to March the 16th. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Your application is adjourned to March the 16th. Thank you, Ms. Chapman.
One question, Mr. Chair. We talked about it earlier, and it's kind of important right now. What if March 16th, Mr. Harrigan, doesn't happen?
Mr. Harrigan, can you comment on that?
Thank you. For you, Mr. Chair, it may result in another adjournment date. We've been talking with the policy team and the director of the team leading the new official plan, and they've anticipated the end of February as being the approval date from the minister that would correct the mistake in the official plan. So we believe that March 16th would be. If there is a mistake with the official plan or delays that are caused, it may necessitate another adjournment. But again, that would be at the applicant's discretion if they wish to have it heard on that date or adjourn it again. But it would really have to be, we'd have to just see what happens at the end of February and when the minister approves it.
If I may, instead of them piling up adjourn, and they're not going to have any difference, whether it's the old official plan or the new official plan, I would just ask that maybe the planning department considers, if there's not going to be a difference, whether it's the new one or the old one, that we go ahead and get these off the table. Just a thought. Talk it over with the boss.
Thank you.
You, Mr. Chair, just as a response to that, our official position is we can't support them just because of the way the current official plan is written. That means I don't necessarily know if we would object to it, but it's just we can't support it as it is. If they wish to pursue and have it heard as is, that is their right to have it heard. But it really comes down to the applicant if they would like to have it heard today or on March 16th.
Thank you, Mr. Harrigan. Now moving on to application number 17. This is having to do with 2973 Stagecoach Road. Ms. Zander, are you available?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm here.
Good morning, Ms. Zander. Are you in agreement with this adjournment request?
Yes, I'm starting to understand the technical issue that's arisen and understand the adjournment request, and I'm agreeable to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Panel, I'd like to ask your approval to adjourn this application to March the 16th. All those in favor, please raise your hands. This application is adjourned till March the 16th. Thank you very much, Ms. Zander. Now we will move on to hear the applications in order. As I mentioned before, application 15 and 18 will be heard at the end due to the conflict that Mr. Otto has with these applications.
Mr. Chair, sorry.
Yes.
To interrupt. Just before we move on, I just wonder if Mr. Webster's here on 13.
Madam Coordinator, is Mr. Webster here?
Mr. Chair, he still is unable to join the call and I haven't been able to reach him.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll put that down to the last of the meeting. On to application number 4. Four and 5. This is having to do with 6 Henry Goulburn Way. Mr. Wither, are you available?
Yep, here I am.
Good morning, Mr. Wither.
Good morning.
I need to administer the oath as to the sign posting on your property. Can you take that oath today?
Yes, I can.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly visible and legible during that time. Do you swear?
I do.
So, Mr. Wither, I think the panel is aware of all of the issues with respect to this property and don't have any, and the planning department, conservation authority do not have any objections to this. The only issues are, I guess, the 8 conditions. Are you agreeable to the 8 conditions, sir?
Yes, we are. They're not onerous at all for us.
Okay, great. So to that end, I'd like to ask the panel if they approve this application with all 8 conditions. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Your application is approved, Ms. Wither. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and panel.
On to
Mr. Chair, just to confirm on the applications 4 and 5, we've approved the consents and the minor variance requests, correct?
yes, both applications.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reward. Now we're moving on to application number 8. Application number 8 concerns 143 Salisbury Road. Mr. Price, are you available?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Rod Price, Rortar Land Development Consultants on behalf of the owner of 143 Salisbury.
Thank you very much, Mr. Price. Are you available to take the oath concerning the sign posting today?
Yes, sir, I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly visible and legible during that time? Do you swear?
I swear.
Thank you. Mr. Price, I believe the panel is aware of all of the issues concerning this property, and planning doesn't have any issues, nor does the Conservation Authority. And to that end, I'd like to move, and there are no conditions on this application. I would like to ask the panel for approval of this application. All those in favor of this application, please raise your hands. Your application is approved, Mr. Price. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, have a great day.
Thank you. Now moving on to application number 9. This application has to do with 2890 Kinburn Side Road. Mr. Riley, are you available? You're muted, Mr. Riley. There you go. Good morning, sir.
Yes.
I need to administer an oath concerning the sign posting on your property.
Morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me? And committee.
Hi, just
Good morning.
cutting in and out a little bit. I need to administer an oath concerning the sign posting of your on your property. Can you take that oath today? Okay.
Yes,
You solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly visible and legible during that time. Do you swear?
I swear.
Thank you very much. At this time, can you please give us a brief description of the application today?
Oh, certainly. So I'm speaking today on behalf of the owners of the 2890 Kinburn Side Road property. I am also the adjacent landowner whose property is involved in this application. Last February, I reached out to city staff to inquire about a lot line adjustment between these properties. And at that time, I'd provided a preliminary sketch, which was slightly larger. It was a parcel that was 0.8 of an acre. And I received correspondence back from the planner who had reviewed it, saying that I need to demonstrate that our proposal would not result in the loss of viable farmland. And the sketch that I included suggested that maybe a portion of it would have some viable farmland in it. So as such, I reduced the width of the lot line adjustment and removed the encroachment on the viable farmland. And today I've proceeded with this current application. So the property parcel in question today is 0.6 of an acre. And I actually submitted a recent photo. I wonder if that could be brought up for the panel to view. Yeah, so this is actually a property shot of the proposed property line adjustment. So the property to the left is, you can see my house in the background there, and you can see the proposed lot line adjustment. So there's rock outcropping and whatnot. So my family has actually had use of this property and maintained this portion of my neighbor's property for the last 14 plus years. This section does have lots of underlying rock underneath it. It's not it's not tillable. It's not feasible to grow crops on. And over the years, I've actually imported topsoil up closer to the John Shaw Road end to cover up the rock so that I could maintain the grass in that area. Before it grew nothing but weeds. And so I've cultivated into lawn, as you can see. The proposal, you know, as you can see right now, up at the far end, fall tillage was not able to occur in that upper end because the rock is so close to the surface, you can't actually till it. You know, so there's no loss of any viable farmland here in this proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Mr. Gordon, I'd like to ask for your comments, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, the planning department objects to the application on the basis that lot line adjustments are only permitted within agricultural land for legal or technical reasons. Staff are of the opinion that no legal or technical reason was provided here. The lot that would be gaining land already complies with the bylaw and is large enough for private servicing. And further, though the lot line may not pass through actively tilled land, by moving it to the very edge of the farming field, the actively tilled field, it's presumed that large equipment will not be able to get as close to the property line. So effectively it is shifting the boundary of what is actually able to be farmed. And it's our opinion that it's inconsistent with policies of the provincial policy statement and the official plan.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. I'd like to ask the conservation for our conservation partners if they have any comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We note that there is floodplain on the retained land, but both the retained and proposed lot addition are well beyond the floodplain, so we have no concerns with the application.
Thank you. I'd like to now ask the panel for their questions, comments, or concerns. Mr. Lewis?
Yeah, I'm looking at the application. I see 0.6 of an acre. Am I right? 0.6 of an acre? A little over half an acre? I don't see that being a very big parcel, I see it's not being farmed now. So, there's nothing being built that we know of. There's going to be no changes, only who's paying the taxes on it. I really don't have a problem with this application. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Otto?
I'm of similar opinion as Mr. Lewis, but I guess, I always heard years ago there was a thing called squatters' rights. And if these people have been using it for 14 years or more, would that not also be more of a reason to go ahead with this application?
Thank you, Mr. Otto. Mr. Vervoort?
Question for Mr. Kelly. You had indicated that you had pre-consulted with Krishan Walker. Was he aware that the property was zoned agricultural and the background to this?
I think that's directed to myself.
Yes, Mr. Riley, sorry.
Yeah, so both properties are zoned ag. My property is zoned ag, as is the additional property zoned ag. So he actually made me aware that property can be exchanged from one, from agricultural land to a non-agricultural use. And maybe to speak more to the equipment not being able to get up close to the property line, there's no fences, there's no obstructions. So I've talked to the farmer that has the land right now, and I said, there's no reason why he couldn't maintain his property the way it currently is being maintained.
Okay, thank you. Question for Mr. Gordon. Have you spoken to Mr. Walker about this brief consultation?
Through the chair to answer Member Vervoort's question, I did review Mr. Walker's pre-consultation email, and it was noted in there that a legal or technical reason is required because that is an integral part of the official plan policy. So that was directly in that email.
Is that correct, Mr. Riley?
It is correct, yes. And my understanding was that because it's not being farmed, that would be a technical reason to allow it.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Chandler, do you have any comments?
A little bit along the same lines. A technical reason might be that the farmland was not viable. I would have preferred to see something in terms of either a small agrologist report speaking to the depth of the bedrock, or even a statement directly from the farmer who owns the land. I mean, I think we could see in one of these photos that you submitted one bedrock outcrop. I would have been more comfortable if we had something to lean on that checked the box of this being a technical severance. Otherwise, I would have been, I'd be comfortable with it going if we had a little bit more information to work with.
Thank you,
I don't know where it's difficult to determine the line of what's a small adjustment if it doesn't quite meet that test, or a large one.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Riley, I've got a comment. I mean, what are you going to use the land for? I mean, you're squaring it off, it looks like, but what's the purpose?
So the purpose of it is right now, it's been an extension of my lawn for 14 years. So it's basically where my family is growing up. We played sports and everything else. It's also a spot where I actually, use recreationally as well. So, it's basically just an extension of our lawn, and that's what I wanted to utilize that for and keep it. My fear is that if the farm is to be sold in the upcoming years, which is a good possibility, new owners might take over, and it might return to its previous state if I wasn't able to maintain it or keep it. It was weeds before. I would like to keep it manicured and maintained as it is right now, for the benefit of everyone.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to ask the panel for approval of this application. All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those against? Your application is approved, Mr. Riley. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now we'll move on to application number 11. Application number 11 is having to do with 131 Kimpton Drive. Mr. Stone, are you available?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Morning.
Can you take an oath concerning the sign posting on your property this morning?
Yes, please.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing, as instructed, and was clearly visible and legible during that time?
Yes, it was.
Thank you very much. Here we have another issue where there is planning department is in agreement with this application as well as conservation authority. There are no conditions of it here. To that end, I'd like to go directly to the panel and ask them for approval of this application. All those in favor of this application, please raise your hands. Your application approved, Mr. Stone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to application number 12. Application number 12 has to do with 1858 Old Montreal Road. Ms. Edwards, are you available?
Yes, yes, I am.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I need to administer an oath concerning the sign posting on your property. Can you take that oath this morning?
Yes,
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly visible and legible during that time? Do you swear?
yes, yes, I do.
Thank you very much. Again, another situation where planning department does not have any issues with this property or this application. And neither does the conservation partners. There are two conditions for approval of this application. Are you aware of them and do you agree with them, Ms. Edwards?
Yes, yes, I do. But I do have one quick question concerning one of them. Condition number 2, is it one application that I have to do for the rezoning and the hold amendments? And is that application specifically the zoning bylaw amendment minor rural? I just want to make sure when I go to the next step that I'm doing the proper application and it's one application.
Okay. Mr. Harrigan, can you comment on that, please?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, in conversations with the planner 3 and the development review manager, this would be one application that would be submitted. And to my understanding, it would be a minor zoning bylaw amendment as it is a condition of approval for a consent application.
Okay.
The one thing I will note, just for your information, there was a minor change to the condition that has changed since we last spoke. One of the conditions is now to modify the holding symbol on the retained land just to change, to not permit development of a residential dwelling until the holding symbol had been lifted. Previously, the holding symbol does allow a dwelling to be constructed before a holding symbol, but because of your desire to avoid doing a hydrogeological report and environmental impact statement, we've modified that condition just to ensure that the sensitive area, which is known to have variable water quality and quantity, is developed accordingly to our policies.
So if in the future that land was sold, then it would be the next owner that would apply for anything they wanted to do there and have to do those studies. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. Since this is a consent application, it does meet the requirements for lifting the holding symbol. So whoever purchases the property in the future would apply to have that holding symbol lifted, which would require a hydrogeological and environmental impact statement plus any other applicable studies. And then that would allow them to develop the lot accordingly to the policies.
Understood. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Harrigan and Ms. Edwards. Now I'd like to ask the panel for approval of this application. All those in favor raise your hands. Thank you. Your application is approved, Ms. Edwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Madam Coordinator, has Mr. Webster joined us?
Mr. Chair, he has not, and I've not been able to reach him.
Okay, thank you very much. On to application number 16. This application has to do with 155 Ivor Road. Mr. Bolduc, are you available?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Good morning. Can you take an oath concerning the sign posting on the property today?
I can, Mr. Chair.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly visible and legible during that time? Do you swear?
I do so swear this to be true, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. So another situation where both planning departments and the conservation partners do not object to this application. To that end, I'd like to go directly to the panel and ask the panel for approval of this application. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Your application is approved, Mr. Bolduc. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too. Moving on to application number 19. Application number 19 has to do with 4900 Frank Kenny Road. Ms. Zander, are you available?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm here.
Can you take the oath concerning the sign posting of the property today?
I cannot, Mr. Chair, but Mr. Kenny should be available to take that oath.
All right. Mr. Kenny, are you available? Good morning, Mr. Kenny. You're muted, sir.
Sorry about that. Good morning.
That's okay. Good morning. Can you take the oath concerning the sign posting on your property?
Yes, I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly visible and legible during that time? Do you swear?
Yes, I swear. It was.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Zander, can you please provide us with a brief description of your application today?
Yes, I can, Mr. Chair. Perhaps if staff could put up my severance sketch, I could speak to that. Thank you. While they're doing that, so the purpose of the application is to sever a 9,000 square meter lot that is surplus to the needs of the agricultural land. Thank you for the sketch. So you can see the lot drawn here with the existing house, outbuildings, and servicing. I understand in the staff report that staff are concerned with the size of this lot, and you can see on paper, we could certainly make this lot smaller, and the staff have suggested that, but we wanted to just briefly discuss this with the committee. Mr. Kenny, obviously, as the property owner, can speak to this in more detail, but we've shown the contour, really, the slope contour line on this sketch. And while this lot is slightly larger than we would typically see for a dwelling that's surplus in a farm area, the lands behind this house that Mr. Kenny would like to include in the severed lot are not viable for agricultural use. There is a steep slope there. There really wouldn't be any way for farm equipment to get into this part of the property anyway. So I don't see this as the loss of agricultural land because it's not accessible and not viable agricultural land anyway. So Mr. Kenny would like to include that with the house. And so that's why this lot is slightly larger. As I said, we can obviously draw this line and make this lot smaller. And if that's the committee's direction, then we would accept the adjournment. But I wanted to just have an opportunity to discuss that with you briefly. And if it's okay, Mr. Kenny, I would probably like to speak to this as the property owner and the functionality of this rear lands as well. Thank you.
Mr. Kenny?
Yes, yeah, and the other, in addition to what Ms. Zander has mentioned, on the south side, there's also several large trees that would have to be removed if this was, if the piece on the south side was not included in the lot as well. They're mature trees, they're 40, 50 feet tall, and there's probably 10 to 12 of them that would have to come down. So that's why the lot is that we're requesting is slightly bigger than what is required for a single family home. There's also just above the very steep hill at the back of the lot, which could not be traveled by any machinery, by a tractor. There's also an old foundation there from the original house, and with a lot of brush growing up inside the foundation. So that is, hasn't been farmed ever. And I think planning did note that the last time that the lot looked like there was any activity on it was 1976. So I'm not sure, that was way before I owned it, but maybe it was a pasture or something at that point, but it's never been farmed, this piece of land. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything further, Ms. Zander?
No, as I said, if the committee would prefer to make this smaller, then we'll accept the adjournment request, but we're looking for a bit of discussion, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Are you familiar with the 4 conditions for approval of this application?
In the staff report?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
And you agree with them?
Agreeable to the conditions, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Gordon, can you comment on the application, please?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, the planning department's objection is to do with the size of the lot. As was discussed, we generally look to minimize the size of the residential lot being taken off a surplus, when it's surplus to a farm. That's the direction given by the provincial policy statement and the official plan. We generally look for lots that are 0.4 hectares, so that's less than half the size of this lot. It is understood that some of those lands at the rear can't be farmed, but the policy doesn't differentiate whether it's actively tilled or not. Inactive lands are still beneficial to a property's WEIR score when it has a larger parcel, as well as providing buffer that the farmer owns between the active agricultural area and residential properties.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gordon. And I'd like to ask our conservation partners if they have any comments to make on this application. I guess Mr. Holland is not available. So we'll now move on to comments, questions from the panel. Mr. Lewis, any questions or comments?
On this one, I usually support these, even if they don't make the OP, but I had to sort of see it. I see pictures of maps and one thing and another. Maybe I'm missing something. I've heard about trees. I've heard about foundations. I've heard about steep hills. Is there any photographs that actually show that? I don't have any in my package. This is one, a site visit would have been very helpful. Those are just my comments.
Any pictures, Ms. Zander?
Aside from the air photo that was in my planning report, Mr. Chair, we did not provide specific photos. No, in hindsight, that would have been good.
Okay.
That would have convinced me for sure. Right now I'm on the fence. I'd like to have a little more evidence on this one.
Okay. Mr. Otto, any comments or questions?
I guess the only question I have, and it's probably for planning, or maybe even the owner, is that I thought these types of severances only occurred under farm consolidation. So is this property being sold and then the land is being severed off as an excess farm building, surplus to the needs, or that's a bit of a gray area where I'm concerned with this.
Any comments from the applicant?
Tracy, do you want me to answer?
Sure.
Yeah, no, it's a surplus dwelling that I have been I've been a landlord for a few years, and I no longer want to be a landlord. I have no use for the house. So my plan, and in line with a discussion that was had with Mark Gordon, I think it was last Friday, that Sander had. My plan will be, once the severance is completed, my plan will be to sell the house. That is going to be one of the conditions that was put in. So there'll be it will be sold once the severance is completed. The house will be sold. the property will be part of my farming operation, continue to be. I farm approximately 400 acres of cash cropland.
Mr. Chair, I think you're going to see these surplus farm dwelling severances in two scenarios, and I have another application that's going to come up later that's going to be the opposite of this, but in this case, Mr. Kenny is the farm operator, so he's going to retain the farmland and sell the house that's surplus to his needs. My other application is my applicant is going to retain the house and sell the farmland to a viable farm operator, and so there's kind of two scenarios, but yeah, Mr. Kenny is the farm operator that's going to retain the lands for crop and as part of his other land holding in the city.
Mr. Otto, anything further?
Yeah, I guess, is that because the new official plan allows this? Because I believe previously the land had to be sold before you could hack off these buildings. That's sort of, I think, a new application of this rule. I think I'd be opposed to it as it stands. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Otto. Mr. Vervoort, any questions or comments?
Well, I think one of the conditions is that the applicant provide a copy of the agreement of purchase and sale. So we would be satisfied that the property is being sold. Based on my review of the aerial photo and the fact that the property hasn't been used for agricultural purposes since 1976, which is a long, long time ago, almost 50 years. I guess we're coming up to 50 years in a couple of years. I think under the circumstances, I'm satisfied with the rationale provided for the larger lot area. So I would be in favor of the application.
Thank you, Mr. Vervoort. Ms. Chandler, any comments?
First, I'd like to confirm from planning, the retained land, the agricultural land, there would be a rezoning that it would not allow for a house to be built on it, correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, is correct.
Okay, so this severance causes me the same problem that the last one did, in that, like, are the tests the same, that there should be a technical reason that we need some sort of proof that in order to create such a large parcel, it should be demonstrated that the land is not farmable. Now, I understand there's a slope and we have a bona fide farmer actually stating that it can't be cropped. So question back to planning, does pasture land count as farmland?
Through the chair, the policy doesn't differentiate between actively used agricultural lands and lands that are more passive. Like even a woodlot on a farm is considered agricultural land, even if that's never been cleared. That would still be considered, like, it's still designated agricultural land, so it's still treated the same way under the policy as actively tilled or pastured lands. Now, the surplus farm dwelling severance policy does allow some flexibility for lots larger than 0.4 hectares where maybe we have a flagpole lot where the house sits very far back in the lot and you need to add some land for the driveway. Or there's also consideration given to outbuildings that are surplus to the farming needs that are being included with the house. And in this case, there are some of those buildings. Planning's concern is just that there's more land being taken than is needed to accommodate the surplus dwelling and surplus outbuildings. And based on the policies, we can't support that.
Okay, so I guess my comment would be I certainly have no issue with the severance, but I do have an issue with the size of the lot, because for the reasons Mr. Gordon has given, I don't think that I can reason out why this sloped area gets cut in half and part of it added to the proposed lot and part of it left as part of the agricultural property. we just need some consistency, and that seems to be the line. I would maybe suggest that the chair allow the applicant and Ms. Zander to think about whether they want to move forwards with this today, or perhaps adjourn it or look for an amendment to the lot configuration based on what they've heard.
Thank you, Ms. Chandler. My comments are that since 1976, a bona fide farmer has not seen this piece of property to be viable to earn any money off of, and he did not farm it. And with all the rocks, the slope, and the trees, it doesn't seem to be reasonable to me that this will ever change in the foreseeable future. So for that reason, I would support this application, regardless of the size of the lot. It just seems that for almost 50 years, nobody has felt that this piece of property, or this large piece of property, can make any money off of using it as a farm. Are there any further comments by the panel? Yes, Mr. Lewis.
Just looking, the mapping is confusing. I'm looking at figure 1, aerial view. And I see the line of trees that hasn't been farmed. Yet the severance doesn't follow that line. It cuts it through the middle. I'm not against the severance. I'm like Ms. Chandler, but I don't have enough information yet for this one. I would suggest to adjourn it. I'd like to see a little. Okay, there you go. See the red severance square? Doesn't follow the line of trees. It's I don't know.
Would you suggest it goes further to the left?
No, I'm just wondering why the line is where it is.
Are you referring to the line on the south side? That is
the severance line, the square with one corner off.
Right. So on the south side, that is the lot line of the adjacent property. There's another residence there. So it goes.
But but out into the field, you're leaving some trees there. Why not leave more?
No, we're not leaving any trees.
Okay.
No. It goes right. It goes right along the edge of the old foundation and then the brush that's there. So I agree. A photograph would have made this a lot simpler in hindsight.
Okay. So, any further comments, Mr. Lewis?
No.
Okay. Ms. Chandler, you suggested another course of action other than approval or a refusal of this application.
Well, I mean, the applicant still has an opportunity to adjourn this and maybe come back with photographs that would be persuasive and a bit more information, or to amend the lot lines, I suppose, on the spot now, make that suggestion. It's really up to them.
Ms. Zander, do you want me to proceed with a vote on this application, or would you like to adjourn to another date?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I sincerely appreciate all the comments. I'm going to suggest to Mr. Kenny that we accept an adjournment, and he and I step back and just consider the comments. I definitely do not want to adjourn sine die, so perhaps if there can be a suggestion of the next date, that would be great, and we'll discuss and come back either with a revised sketch or some additional information to support this proposal.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Deputy Secretary, do we have room on the February 2nd?
Mr. Chair, I believe as it stands, with one earlier adjournment from today, we're at, I think, 15 items on the February 2nd agenda.
Okay, so we can accommodate, I think, this application if this is the way that the committee would like to proceed. To that end, I'd like to ask the committee to adjourn this application to February the 2nd, as requested by the applicant. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Your application has been adjourned to February the 2nd, Ms. Zander. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One last try, Madam Coordinator. We'll see if Mr. Webster in application number 13 is available.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Webster is on the call. Promote him now.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Webster. Mr. Webster, sir. Item coordinator. Oh, there he is. You're muted, Mr. Webster.
Mr. Chair, he had mentioned that he was having issues with his microphone,
Okay.
but was
I
open
see
to
you now,
adjournment.
Mr. Webster. Can't hear you. Can you call in, Mr. Webster? There we go. We see you trying to call in.
Mr. Chair, if I may, it's got the same things as the other one with the OP. What would we just move this till March 16th?
I don't have an issue with that if Mr. Webster agrees, but I can't see his face anymore.
If he doesn't contact us, we've no direction at all.
Mr. Chair, I just spoke with Mr. Webster on the phone and he's now trying to phone in. I just have to give him instructions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Webster, if you can hear me, just nod. Guess you can't. Mr. Webster, this application was requested to be adjourned. Are you in agreement with the adjournment of this application?
Okay, apparently I'm unmuted now.
There you are.
Holy, you know, it's amazing that the stuff you can do. This computer stuff is not my bag of hell. Anyway, I read all the stuff.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? Just 1 second, Mr. Webster. This application was requested to be adjourned. Are you willing to adjourn this application to March 16th when the minister will hopefully approve the changes to our official plan and should give you an easier pass?
Let me think about that for about a nanosecond. Yes.
Okay, very good. So I'd like to ask the panel for approval of this application or to have it adjourned till March the 16th. All those in favor?
Mr.
Yes.
Chair, if I may too, I think there's also an issue as to the location of the lot, one of the lots in the agricultural zone. So that may be something that Mr. Webster wants to clarify with planning as well, based on their comments.
Yes, who's the gentleman I should talk to?
Should speak with Sean Harrigan.
Sean. Okay, Sean. Sean Harrigan?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, no problem.
All right, so I'd like to ask the panel then for approval of this application to be adjourned to March the 16th. All those in favor, please raise your hands. This application will be approved to be adjourned till March the 16th. Thank you very much, Mr. Webster.
Quick question. These meetings are going to be 9 o'clock in the morning again?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because the client phoned me minutes ago. I thought it was at 6 o'clock tonight, so thank God he phoned me. All right.
Okay, thank
awesome.
you.
Thanks
Okay.
so much, you guys, and thanks for your patience. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Now we'll move on to applications 15 and 18. Mr. Otto, thank you very much for your help today. You're muted, sir.
I'll sign out, but my wife's going to take over on this screen. I'll be leaving the room. So
Okay.
Don't knock her out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Good morning, Ms. Otto. We're now dealing with
Morning.
application number 15, and it is having to do with your property on Panna Road.
yes,
And to that end, I need to administer an oath concerning the sign posting on your property. Can you take that oath today?
yes, I will do the oath.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly visible and legible during that time? Do you swear?
I do swear.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We do have no comments from Planning Department nor any comments from the Conservation Authority. We have one condition. Are you in agreement with that condition, Ms. Otto?
That's the condition that the planning department requested?
Correct. That's the standard lot line condition. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. To that end, I'd like to ask the panel for approval of this application. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Your application is approved, Ms. Otto. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Now moving on to application number 18. Application number 18 has to do with 3943 Nixon Drive. Ms. Zander, are you available?
There we go. I made it back.
Hi, Ms. Zander. Are you able to take the oath concerning the sign posting on the property?
I am not, but my client, Mr. Finley, I believe, is phoning into the hearing this morning. So hopefully your staff can coordinate a call with him.
We have a phone call on the line. Mr. Finley, are you available? You're muted at this time. Still muted. Madam Coordinator, is there anything you do at our end to unmute Mr. Finley?
Mr. Finley, could you please dial 6 or star 6?
Okay, so what we'll do right now is we'll proceed with the your presentation, Ms. Zander, and it'll be conditional on Mr. Finley confirming that the sign posting has been on the property. He takes the oath.
Very good.
Okay, so we'll now proceed to hear your application. Please provide a brief description of the application, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, this is a dwelling that's surplus to the needs of the farm. Mr. Finley will retain the dwelling on the severed lot as required in your official plan. The retained lands would be rezoned to prohibit the construction of another dwelling. And the size of the severed lot is 2 acres, about 8,000, just over 8,000 square meters. If you have my severance sketch, which perhaps staff could share, you can see the vegetation, the buildings, the septic system, the mantle for the septic system, and so on, result in the shape of this lot. Again, slightly larger than you would often see with surplus farm dwelling severances, but I think in this case, the features that are there, the buildings, the vegetation, and so on, make this severed lot a logical size and shape. Your new official plan that has been adopted does have this requirement for a purchase and sale agreement. So it's understood from staff that in the future that will be required up front. But in this case, staff have indicated they would be comfortable including that as a condition. So Mr. Finley is aware of that requirement. And as I said, the retained lands we understand would be rezoned to prohibit another dwelling. So it would be continued for agricultural use. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you familiar with the conditions required for approval of this application?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chair. I have no concerns.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask planning to make some comments concerning this application.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, as Ms. Sander mentioned, this lot is slightly larger than what would be normally acceptable for a surplus farmhouse dwelling severance. However, it is recognized that it's the proximity of the outbuildings and secondary buildings to the property lines, as well as some dense vegetation, some really mature trees that create a natural barrier between viable farmland and the property line. So we are agreeable with this lot size, given these present circumstances.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask our conservation partners for comments. Mr. Lalonde?
Yeah, the RVCA has no objections to the applications. There are features identified on the property, but the proposed lots are those features are not on the proposed lot. So there are no concerns from both the RVCA and the Ottawa Septic System Office.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'd like to move on to the panel, ask some further questions or comments. Ms. Chandler?
I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Mr. Lewis?
Yeah, I've no problems with this, and I guess I understand why the planning department is going to ask for the purchase and sale agreement up front. In the future, it's because if it doesn't happen, what happens, But do they have to have it? Here's another question: can they not have that? Just thought of this. Why can't that purchase and sale agreement be something that has to be produced within the 2-year period now instead of up front? Where did we go, Sean?
Mr. Harry?
Through you, Mr. Chair, for this application, we are requesting it as a condition of approval, just given that when the inquiry came in, just to recognize those limitations. In future applications, this will be required up front. We are still dealing with a policy team to determine the best approach to this application. However, this does come from the provincial policy statement asking for it up front, just to prevent speculation and sale of it. However, we are in talks right now with the policy team to determine the best way to implement this. But as of right now, for this application, we are agreeable to have it as a condition of approval.
Yeah, I think that just should be a condition of approval, but that's my 2 cents. And other than to streamline the process, we've had a couple here today where we haven't been able to get the sign posting. Can that be something where the person or that agent that comes in front of us can't do it, has to refer it to the owner or someone else, that couldn't be emailed, signed and emailed in ahead of the meeting to streamline the process? I guess that's the deputy coordinator question. Hello.
I may be able
to.
to.
Go ahead.
So through you, Mr. Chair, just procedurally, the declaration states that the sign was posted up to and including the hearing day, so it would have to be submitted today. The applicant does have that option. We're not refusing to receive signed declarations, but logistically, many are finding it easier, given the office is closed at the moment, to make their declaration orally at the hearing.
But the like of this one, have we got it yet?
I don't believe we have. We're still waiting for the owner to take the oath.
We have not received a statutory declaration.
It's been a practice that we've always had, that the statutory declaration was presented at the time of the hearing when we were in person. But in this case, and as in every other application we heard today, no one has presented the statutory declaration in writing. Some have in the past, but none have done so today. Any comments, Mr. Vervoort?
No, I'm fine with that, subject to Mr. Finley confirming the signposting.
Thank you. Ms. Chandler, did I get you already? I did. Okay, good. So, Ms. Zander, I need to make sure that you get Mr. Finley to sign a statutory declaration concerning the signposting. Otherwise, that's what this the application, whatever the result of this, will be conditioned upon. Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, can you make a decision and put that as a condition in this case? Mr. Finley doesn't have the technology to Zoom into this hearing, so we'd arranged for the phone call. Unfortunately, that looks like it's kind of fallen apart today.
That's right. So what I'm suggesting is that that you get the statutory declaration signed by Mr. Finley.
Okay.
And have him send it in to us. I still see his phone number has popped up on the screen. Mr. Finley, are you able to join us?
Press *6 to unmute yourself.
Oh,
wait,
Mr. Finley, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Just I couldn't seem to push the *6 and the keep on wouldn't work.
Okay.
Okay, I'm here.
Well, we've got you now. I need to ask you if you can confirm the sign posting on your property. To that end, I have to administer an oath. Can you take that oath today?
I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing, as instructed, and was clearly visible and legible during that time? Do you swear?
I swear.
Thank you very much, Mr. Finley. Now I'm going to proceed and ask the panel for approval of this application with all 4 conditions. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Your application is approved, Ms. Zander. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you. I think that brings us to an end, if I'm not wrong. And to that end, I want to thank everybody for their participation today and for their help.